For many organizations, success can sometimes mask underlying vulnerabilities. Large ministries often operate on a model that appears stable from the outside, with robust revenue, active supporters, and well-funded programs. But beneath the surface, structural changes in evolving environments can create challenges that aren't immediately visible. When income slows and costs remain high, even a well-established system can feel pressure. Understanding these dynamics requires looking beyond daily operations and examining trends, donor behavior, media evolution, and leadership structures. The question isn't whether the organization will survive, but how it adapts to ensure long-term sustainability. A model built on momentum. For decades, the ministry operated on a simple yet powerful formula: teach, inspire, receive support, and reinvest in outreach. Television broadcasts, radio programs, and live conferences extended the reach of its message worldwide, while books amplified influence further. This created a self-sustaining cycle. Audiences became supporters, supporters funded more content, and the momentum grew. As long as the flywheel spun, growth seemed inevitable. Financially, the system appeared robust. Revenue consistently exceeded expenses, reserves accumulated, and programs expanded globally. To an external observer, the structure was strong, predictable, and capable of funding a wide array of initiatives indefinitely. Revenue streams in expansion, the ministry's finances were diversified, recurring monthly partners provided a steady foundation, while conferences, events, and book sales offered additional revenue. Outreach programs, including humanitarian projects, disaster relief, and community aid, were heavily supported by these funds. For many years, the model worked exceptionally well, generating surplus funds and growing net assets. Donations appeared stable, and the ministry's presence expanded across multiple platforms. This careful balance suggested both growth and resilience. But even a successful model is vulnerable when external pressures begin to change the rules of engagement, especially in sectors reliant on audience participation and generosity. Subtle shifts. Behind the scenes, problems rarely appear overnight. Initially, everything seemed unchanged. Daily broadcasts continued, conferences were full, and supporters still contributed. Yet beneath the surface, pressures were building. Small shifts, slower donations, rising costs, and changing audience behavior started eroding the momentum. What was once an expanding flywheel began to decelerate. When a system is built on growth, a slight slowdown can eventually affect financial stability. These subtle changes are difficult to detect in day-to-day operations, but become glaring when examined in yearly financial statements, signaling deeper structural challenges that require attention before a minor pressure becomes a major issue. The pandemic effect. The pandemic temporarily altered giving patterns for many organizations. While some charities experienced surges in donations, fueled by increased online engagement and public uncertainty, the boost was not permanent. Once restrictions lifted, these donation levels normalized. For the ministry, the pandemic years masked an underlying trend: reliance on temporary spikes to maintain growth. At the same time, operational costs did not decrease. Studio production, travel, and distribution expenses remained significant. This created a tightening of financial margins. The temporary surge, though beneficial in the short term, delayed recognition of deeper systemic pressures that would later affect long-term sustainability. Changing media landscape. Television, once the primary engine of engagement, has declined over the years. Younger audiences prefer short-form content, podcasts, and social media interactions rather than scheduled broadcasts. This shift makes long-term donor retention more challenging. Converting digital viewers into recurring supporters requires new strategies. The ministry's traditional model relied heavily on a consistent television audience, but the media environment has evolved. Digital platforms offer reach but require innovative approaches to convert engagement into financial support. Without adaptation, even a globally recognized ministry can experience a slowdown in the flywheel, emphasizing the need to rethink media strategy in a rapidly changing environment. Donor base evolution. Another challenge lies in the generational shift of supporters. Many longtime donors have contributed faithfully for decades, but younger generations approach giving differently. They often favor short-term campaigns over monthly commitments and are more selective with their support. If the ministry's core donor base continues to age without attracting new recurring supporters, the financial system experiences strain. This shift doesn't create immediate crises, but gradually slows growth. Without evolving engagement strategies and outreach initiatives, the ministry risks a persistent mismatch between expenses and revenue, a dynamic that requires careful analysis and planning to sustain operations over time. Financial shifts and deficits. Recent financial reports reveal a stark shift. Revenue fell to just over $104 million, while expenses climbed past $122 million, creating a deficit of nearly $18 million. This swing represents a dramatic change from a surplus of $15 million just 2 years prior, a $30 million turnaround in a short period. Net assets dropped from roughly $77 million to under $60 million, indicating that operations are now partially funded from reserves. Withdrawals from long-term funds further reduce financial cushioning. These numbers are not signs of collapse, but indicate structural pressure that demands attention, signaling that adaptation is necessary for continued sustainability. Structural pressures behind the numbers. Behind the deficit lie systemic factors. Fixed costs for studios, staff, production, and broadcast airtime remain high, making the organization sensitive to even small revenue fluctuations. Large-scale operations do not adjust quickly to changing financial conditions. Additionally, audience engagement and media shifts exacerbate challenges. The flywheel that once generated consistent growth now spins more slowly, creating tension between revenue and expenses. Understanding the root of these pressures is critical. The deficit is a symptom, not the problem itself. Addressing underlying structural issues is essential to ensure long-term financial health and to continue funding programs effectively. Adaptation as a strategy facing financial pressure. Organizations have options, costs can be reduced, media strategies can be updated, and digital platforms can be leveraged to connect with younger audiences. Each path requires thoughtful change, balancing mission and financial reality. Strategic adaptation is crucial when traditional models no longer produce previous results. Leadership must carefully consider which programs to maintain, how to modernize engagement, and how to preserve core values while responding to changing circumstances. Proactive decision-making ensures that pressure does not become a crisis, allowing the organization to evolve with its audience and environment. Leadership transition and continuity leadership plays a critical role in sustaining momentum. Founders who define an organization's voice and identity are difficult to replace. Succession planning and leadership development are essential when core figures eventually step back. Without strong leadership capable of navigating financial pressures and structural shifts, even established ministries may struggle to maintain influence and donor engagement. Ensuring continuity while embracing innovation allows the organization to adapt without losing its core mission, bridging the gap between legacy and modernization in both operations and outreach strategies. Reading the signals numbers alone do not predict the future, but they serve as important signals. The recent deficit, reserve withdrawals, and financial shifts highlight areas that need attention. Analysts and leaders must interpret these changes to understand structural trends and pressures. The focus should be on sustainability, strategic adaptation, and maintaining programmatic impact. Financial statements are not just bookkeeping. They reveal how effectively the ministry can operate under new conditions, reach audiences, and engage supporters in a changing landscape. Properly understood, these signals guide decisions that ensure long-term success. Conclusion, from momentum to sustainability, even the most established organizations face turning points when the environment shifts faster than internal systems can adapt. The ministry remains operational, programs continue, and outreach persists. Yet the transition from surplus-driven growth to operations under pressure demands new strategies. Sustaining momentum requires adjusting financial models, embracing digital platforms, and cultivating new donor relationships. Leadership, strategic planning, and adaptability become paramount. The story is not one of decline, but of evolution. Recognizing pressure early and responding effectively ensures that the organization continues to fulfill its mission